Hi, this is LadyLex UK, and here is another tutorial for Project Spark. In this tutorial, we're going to look at prop limits and how to improve it for yourself and how to make really massive worlds without ever worrying about whether or not you put too many props and effects in your world. Because what we're going to do is destroy them as we go. And I'm going to show you how you can also create them as you go as well. So you need never ever worry about hitting a prop limit, because the chances of you actually hitting a prop limit when you're creating and destroying are really, really small. And it should help with actually improving lag and that sort of thing. By the way, if you are getting lag with Project Spark immediately before you've even done anything, then it means that you haven't actually done the restart for Project Spark. You have to do that every time, nearly every time, you load up Project Spark for the Xbox One now that the servers are down. When you first load up Project Spark, check to see if there is lag on the animation on the main menu. If there is, don't continue, quit and relaunch, and you should have a nice smooth animation the second time and you won't get any problems. So if you get that sort of lag, that's the easy fix. Now for this, what we're going to do here is I've created like a theme ride style game. I've got a path here, and my player's going to go down this path and he's going to encounter various scenes as he goes. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm going through a forest, and I head up to a house which suddenly catches fire, and then as we go along they get some rocks, and there's some falling rocks as I go through, and then I get to the end of my path. Okay, so that's it. It's very simple. Now let's have a look at it from the opposite direction. So we'll just turn around. Okay, so you see we're going through the part of the forest, and now the forest has disappeared and we're going to the house. Now the house has disappeared, and we're going to the rocks. Now the rocks have disappeared. So I'm destroying my terrain, my props and my scenes as I go. So it starts off with lots of effect cost and lots of prop cost, and by the time we finish we've got very little at all. So how has this worked? Well, what I've done is I've set up these scenes to be destroyed as the player gets to a certain waypoint on my path. Now if you're not familiar with waypoints, let me just pop a path down. As you can see, it says 0 and 1. That's your waypoint. So this is waypoint 1 here, and this will be 2, and that will be 3. These are the waypoints on your path, and they are numbered. Now I think there is a way of actually determining which numbered waypoint you're at, but as I see, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. You see they're numbered when you hover over the path. And there's your waypoints. Now, I couldn't work out how to get the code to establish the waypoints, so I've used a number variable instead, but it all works just as good. So here's my player. And it says, when move on path, and that's the path. And then when started to cross a waypoint on the path, waypoint is incremented by 1. So when the waypoint equals 1, we'll destroy the forest and we'll turn the house power on. And when we turn waypoint 2, get to waypoint 2, we'll destroy the house, and we get to waypoint 3, we'll destroy the rocks. And because we're turning the power on to the this logic cube here, if you power attach any of your, so you see there's a power attachment, power attach any effects to that cube, then it will turn on when your cube is turned on. So you can put as many effects on here as you like, and that will be turned on by this code. And that's basically it. All we've done is we've just got our scene and we've just destroyed it as it hits different waypoints. Now over here I've got a similar path, but this time I've already got 3 logic cubes on it and nothing else. So let's destroy. Let me just save this. I'm always a bit worried that I've done something and then I've not saved it. Let's save that. Always save things before you start destroying stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to delete. As you can see, all of the props are linked to this, so I just need to destroy the logic cubes and the entire scene goes. So you need to plan this in advance when you're doing this to make your scenes and put your manage to attach everything to your logic cube. And let's destroy our man as well. Okay, let's turn his brain on. Whoops. Okay, now let's see what happens here. So I've got the forest, I've hit a waypoint, and the house is created with the flames. And then the rocks are created as I'm moving on. And we'll get to the end of the path. Okay, so what I've done here is I've put logic cubes where I want the scenes to appear. And I just saved the assemblies and like this. So I've gone to my gallery and I looked at my assemblies and pulled out my assembly. So it says here, when the waypoint is 0, I'm going to create scene 1, which is the forest, at position 1 logic cube. And when it gets to position waypoint number 1, I'll destroy scene 1 and create scene 2. And that carries on all the way down. So I'll destroy the scene previously and create the new scene. Now, if you don't want it to be very obvious to player, I suggest you only destroy things that are quite far back. So if you wouldn't destroy scene 2 as soon as you create scene 3, you destroy scene 1. So he's not going to necessarily notice if it's far enough ahead. So you might want to think about doing it like that. And that's it. So just remember, all you need to do is attach everything to a logic cube. And it's also a very handy thing to notice when you want to move a lot of objects. So let's say we had we got a few of these like this, and I wanted to move that entire scenario, this little circly thing, I wanted to move that elsewhere. What you would do is you take your logic cube, and then you just attach everything to your cube. And now you can move all of them around in one go. It's a very handy tip for when you're making scenes. If you like the scene, or what is even better tip, let's say I really like this and I want to use this a lot of places. I mean, you can just grab, paste, I can paste it all over the place. But if you want to recreate it using code, then you just go into multi-edit, you select the cube, you press the left button, and then you save the assembly, and you can save the assembly here, and then you've created that, and that's in your assembly gallery, and you can use that in code. So you can create that like I've done on this line up here. Now if you want to save even more space, instead of putting logic cubes down, you could also just work out the coordinates of where the logic cubes are. The easy way to do that is just to ask it to display the position. So that's the position of the forest. As you see, there's 3 coordinates. You can use those coordinates instead of asking it to create it at the position of the logic cube. You ask it to create it at the position of a vector variable which you've set using those coordinates. Now there's a few tutorials that I've done in the past that have covered that, so I'm not going to cover that here. But you could do that instead of having logic cubes everywhere if you really wanted to keep the prop level down to the very bare minimum. Now let me show you something else that I made. Using the same principle of destroying environments. So here we have, I've created some identical rooms and I've just staggered them next to each other to make a sort of a maze, if you like. Okay, so we go into room 1, that blue room, and it's got some furniture in it, and then I'll walk into the yellow room, and a portcullis has come down, and the room has disappeared. Room 1 is no longer there, so I'll move on. I'll go into the green room here, and the same thing has happened. The portcullis has come down, and the yellow room has disappeared. And you can do that on and on and on as you go through your world. So what I've done here, instead of using a path and etc., I've used trigger zones. So everything you just saw with the path, instead of waypoints, it's just trigger zones. So once I get into room 2 and the player's in the trigger zone, I'll destroy room 1. And this is just making everything in the room yellow so I can identify that this is a different room. And in my portcullis, here's my portcullis, I'm saying when there's no room 1, then I'll play the sound of the door coming down, and then I'll make myself visible and collidable. But when there is a room 1, I'm not visible and I'm not collidable. And that's it. That's basically it. You do that for every room. And that's a handy little thing to use. But trigger zones, if you're not familiar with trigger zones, this is a trigger zone for this logic cube here. As you can see, there's a little white line all the way around, and I've resized that so it's the same size as the room. So when the player is in the room, again, I suggest if you want to destroy these rooms or create these rooms depending on where the player is, do it so that he has one buffered room either side, so he's not going to see it. So you wouldn't destroy room 1 until he'd got to room 3, for example. So you don't actually have a problem of seeing these things being destroyed. And I think you could do the same with create. Obviously, that we just saw, we could create these rooms one at a time as we're going through, and you could create endless runners this way also. It's a very versatile thing, attaching to a logic cube. It's a wonderful thing. So you can destroy, you can create, you can change everything in the room to be a different colour. So as you can see there, for each of attachments, primary equals yellow. Everything that's attached to that logic cube is now yellow. So this kitchen unit now is yellow, the room is yellow, and the portcullis is yellow. So you can do all sorts of wonderful things with attachments to logic cubes. Well, I hope that was useful to you, and I hope it makes you make really, really large worlds that you thought it was impossible to do before, especially if you're trying to make a really complicated RPG with lots of wonderful cutscenes. This might help you out. So, thank you for watching, and keep sparking.